Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Robots and Red Tape. As always, I am your host, Nick Shutt. Happy to have my friend Mike Todasco here with me today. Mike, how are you, man?
Nick, I am doing awesome. I'm excited about this conversation.
As am I, man. Thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to chat. I know
Yeah,
you're very
yeah.
busy. For everybody that doesn't know you and doesn't have that fortune in their life yet, man, if would you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of how you got here, man?
Yeah, for sure. So Mike Todasco, father, two kids, lovely wife, live in California. Originally was raised in Chicago. I grew up there as a kid in the 80s and 90s. I bought and sold baseball cards, my first entrepreneurial venture, if you will.
Hmm.
Went to school, entered a career in finance. Totally not a fit for me. And so soon after that, I started my own business and it was selling comic book artwork, which I love to talk about and all that. Didn't succeed how I wanted it to. So after that, had an opportunity to join PayPal, where I
Hmm.
was at for 11 years. And the first half was in different product roles. The back half was doing innovation for the company. So I was leading global innovation for PayPal, looking at a lot of cool new emerging technology, things like that. And it's very weird for a finance slash accounting person to be running innovation for a large tech company like that. But um, I think it worked and it was a super fun ride and gave me a very different perspective. So henceforth, when I really got to start to play with what is now known as generative AI tools, it was really eye-opening to me because I wasn't an engineer.
Hmm.
And so I couldn't do the magical things that machine learning engineers could do. And I really it just resonated. So since 2022, left PayPal, been writing about all things AI. I'm at San Diego State University, where we have an AI center. So I
Hmm.
teach and do research and all this other fun stuff there. And that's who I am.
That's fantastic, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to hop on and chat with us with the it's a fantastic background. How, as a non-technical person, how did you get into technology in at PayPal, and second, how has these chat GPT and these GPT engines changed your ability to to contribute in the technology space?
Yeah. So I think I probably should have been an engineer in
Mhm.
college or
Yeah.
something. I was too lazy. All my
Yeah.
roommates were engineers. They had all this homework. I was a finance major. I just got to go out on Thursday nights like it was a
Nice.
weekend. So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that was my life.
absolutely.
Um, but I was always into tech. Like Nick, I'll tell you, we're living in Ohio, my wife and I. That's where we met. We had a house, got married in Ohio. This would have been 2003, 2004. I actually had a robot lawnmower in
Awesome.
2004. So
That's
like literally
fantastic.
this is over 20 years ago,
Hmm.
had this and so forth. And like I just always was seeking out that stuff, always trying to understand it and all
Yeah.
that. And
Mike, was
it's
that the
amazing if you.
lawnmower that you had to put it in the same point every place when you started it and you hit the button and it would like run through the path that you because I remember this tool where you would like you'd have a mower and you'd go and you'd have to like mow the lawn once, and every time if you put it back in the starting
Oh,
point it would do it for you and just kind of walk the same path.
this is a little bit different. No, this was a little bit different technology. The company was called Friendly Robotics out of Israel.
Hmm.
So like I had to buy and get this thing shipped over and all this other
Right.
kind of stuff. You would put an invisible fence in the yard, kind of like the dog fence type thing,
Hmm.
So you have like the wire down in the yard. So that defines the perimeter.
Hmm.
And what it would do is it was almost like a Roomba, but like
Hmm.
bigger, heavier, and it would just start going line by line and just like basically somewhat random paths. Now, here was the problem with it. Like, it didn't look good. Like, if you want
Hmm.
nice, like manicured
Right.
baseball stadium type lines, you ain't getting that.
Hmm.
I didn't give a crap. I just
Right.
wanted like to not mow my lawn. So I would
Hmm.
just send this thing out at night and it would just start going. And sometimes it wouldn't get a spot. You'd have to like get the remote control and
Hmm.
like actually go over the thing, or I'd take a weed whacker and do it because we
Right.
didn't have a real lawnmower.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's how that thing worked. And I will say it is somewhat amazing that even 20 years later, like that technology doesn't exist at all today. Like it's nowhere to be found, sadly.
No, not real. I mean, I would assume that that's going to be one of the later things to get automated away, just because you look at the like incredibly inexpensive to have somebody come mow your lawn. I don't know if they're coming for that yet. I don't think,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
move out to the Bay Area. It's much more expensive to get somebody.
I bet I think here I mean I'm based outside of DC, so it's not like we're a low cost of living area by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But I think it cost me like $35, but I also have a small lawn that could be part of
Wow.
it, you
I
know?
mean, generally speaking, out here, so like to get lights put up, I was, it's funny, I was doing a podcast recently and it was more focused on like handymen and handy people
Hmm.
like who work on stuff. And I was like, if you want to make some money, basically just take a van, drive to the Bay Area and just go.
Is that my connection? Mm-mm. Interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you really want to make money, come
Hmm.
out to the Bay Area and you will see that like come out during Christmas time. Like end of November after Thanksgiving, come out here for a couple of weeks, get a van, just go door to door, ask houses if put up Christmas lights for them.
Hmm.
It's about $1,000
That's
for, and
crazy.
we have a 2,000 square foot house
Hmm.
to put up Christmas lights like on existing hooks and so
Yeah.
forth. So like,
Wow.
yes, it's crazy expensive
So
out here.
I
Certain
saw
neighborhoods.
signs out to do that for the first time this year. I was like, I was thinking about calling them because like I'm not sure if I really want to get up on the ladder and do the lights to take them down in like
Yeah.
3 weeks because that's a level of effort not necessarily into, especially when it's so cold out here. Like unlike the wonderful Bay Area, it's been like in the 30s here since
It's 70 degrees today here.
yeah.
Yes, no, no.
Oh,
So, but
I
needless to
have
say,
snow on the ground.
needless to say, we only have lights on the bushes now. That's it.
Absolutely.
Like I'm
Uh-huh.
done. It's just going on the bushes. I'm
Uh-huh.
not going anywhere else.
Exactly. But yeah, I was like I'm the guy that I see things like that and I'm like I wonder what the business model is. How does it work? So I'm glad to know people are out there like that it's worth it to a lot of folks. I'll probably end up doing it because I love Christmas, but the
Yeah,
level of effort when it comes to those lights is high. We'll see.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. But sorry, and there was logic here. Your
Mhm.
question ultimately was getting to how did I use GPT-3
Yes.
GPT
Hmm. Yeah.
technology? Um, So again, at PayPal, I worked with a lot of machine learning engineers, saw them do a lot of cool things, was hearing about, I think, GPT-2 at the
Hmm.
time, which was OpenAI's, precursor to what they have with ChatGPT and GPT-4 and all those models today. But didn't get access to it till GPT-3. So
Hmm.
this would have been 2021, I think. Yeah, 2020, 2021, something like
Hmm.
that. And I remember I was actually doing just a little side project thing where I was like, wouldn't it be funny if a robot became president and or an AI became president? And
Hmm.
like, what would its inaugural address look like? So what I did was I took a couple lines from like Obama's address, I want to say, and then, added a little bit. And then I just kind of put it in the model. And I said, go. And it just started writing for me, Nick. And I'd
Hmm.
never seen this in my life before.
Yeah.
And I remember like doing that in my kitchen here. My wife was upstairs. I remember just running upstairs screaming. I was
Hmm.
like literally, I'm like, the computer is writing stuff. Like
Hmm.
it is creating, it is writing. And like I just told it what to do, and it kind of makes sense.
Hmm.
Like it
Yeah.
wasn't good. It would sputter and all this other kind of stuff, but it was magical seeing that. Like there's certain technological things I know and remember well that are just kind of magical. And this was one of those instances where I was like, oh my God. And this is going to change everything. And
Hmm.
when you could do this badly, you could sort of see the line of where, if it's doing this badly now, well, it's going to be able to do a little bit better, a little bit better. These things keep improving, which is what
Hmm.
has happened over the last several years.
Yeah.
It's going to lead us to a completely new and different place. And that's really what got me so excited about these generative technologies.
Yeah, man. No, and I also had a similar moment. Part of my world is a lot of hiring, right? And so
Yeah.
I had a call with a client had new position intake. They'd listen, I need this kind of person. They gave me like three or four lines of like over the phone,
Yeah,
right? Said, and they're working on this program. Can you help out? Right. And I took those three or four lines of whatever and grabbed it, dropped it into ChatGPT. This was late 2021 after 3.5 came out to the public, or early
yeah,
22, and dropped it in, and then dropped some like program descriptions in and said, hey, write me a job description. And I had that same moment where it's like, oh, this used to take like an hour or 45 minutes, and it just did it in 3 minutes, and it's better than what I would do. Like, also,
that's
I'm not somebody that writes job descriptions well. That's not what I
right.
do. But
Yeah.
like it did it really, really, really well. And considering, and I was just like, oh my God, what is this even? And then it started running like, can I have this thing write code for me? Because I'm not a coder, right? That's not where
Yeah.
I come from. And it can, and it can, like, I mean, not as well as an engineer, especially at that time, but it's wild.
It is incredible. One of the things I did this past summer, I wanted to take a little break from the usual AI writing I was doing, and I was going to just write about AI films and just
Hmm.
like, what are the best AI films? I was going to revisit them, write about like, okay, what did people think back in the 60s versus what we're seeing today and all that. It was a interesting thing. But one of the things I did with that was like, do you know what? I'm going to make video games for all these.
Hmm.
And I, again, not a coder, I'm a finance guy.
Right.
So I then was mostly using Claude at the time.
Hmm.
And I was having it develop like 8-bit style video games based on the movie and publishing it on GitHub. And I think they're
Hmm.
all still active out there. Like anybody can play these games. And like they're fairly, you'll get bored after about 2 minutes playing them, but
Hmm.
like it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like to actually be able to create something like that and to have a vision and say, like, oh, would it be neat to do this, this, and this? And again, like as I said earlier, this is the worst that is all going to
Mhm.
be. It is only going to get better from here.
Absolutely. And it's out of curiosity, man. I know you're in the process of getting a master's in fine arts as well, in writing specifically,
Yeah.
I believe. How do you with getting that formal education now with GPT being out, how do you think that it has the potential to affect, let's say, more creative or artistic communities? And what do you think the potential upsides and downsides are?
So, with where the technologies are at today, let's
Hmm.
at least talk to that. Like, it is immensely helpful if you're, let's just say a writer, because that's what I'm
Hmm.
getting my degree in. So, I use Grammarly all the time. I spend $150 a year for that, whatever it is. It is a really good tool to just help me, to give me recommendations, to do all this stuff. At one point, I was like, I don't need to spend $150 on this. I got ChatGPT, and I'm like, I actually miss it. And
Yeah.
then a month later, I'm like, I signed back up for it. So like, but that's all AI. That is
Hmm.
all AI working there as a helper for you. One of the things I do, and I was actually just writing a piece and doing this morning, I will always take a first pass without the AI.
Hmm.
Then second, and I will usually leave placeholders in there and then kind of reread it later. And often I find like I don't know what to put in these placeholders. Like
Hmm.
I could like either it's research or I'm looking for the right word or whatever it might be. And so I just basically then will throw it into Claude and say, "Hey Claude, see all these placeholders? Give me 5 options for each."
Hmm.
And that it does a damn good job at.
Hmm.
I will just say honestly, it does like it cannot write an entire thing start to finish. It is not there yet to be able to do that and to do that well. But to like fill in gaps, to be able to look at all this other kind of stuff, to be a kind of a brainstorming partner with
Yeah.
you. God, is
Hmm.
it good at that?
Oh yeah.
And it's just super helpful. And I think the thing that matters more and more is just taste, to be able to decipher, well, what is good, what isn't good, and so forth, and be able to really do that with the models is where I see the value.
Hmm.
Downside is slop. Is
Hmm.
just like AI doing things for the sake of AI because it was told to write a book or whatever. And I create slop myself. I have a
Hmm.
pen name called Alex Irons, and
Nice.
anybody can go on Amazon, search for Alex Irons, and you will see, I don't know, 15 or so AI written books
Hmm.
by Alex Irons, who happens to look like me, but frankly is better looking than me. But this is an
Did
AI
AI
that I
create that picture?
created. What's that?
Did AI create the picture
It
of
was
you
an
kind of
AI
looking?
generated photo.
Nice.
Yes, yes, exactly. Based
Hmm.
on me.
Hmm.
But like, And look, I'm very transparent that this is an AI writing these books, but I've been doing these books since 2022, soon
Hmm.
after ChatGPT came out, and like as an experiment to just see how good is it. And I will tell you, like honestly, I won't read a single one of those books.
Yeah.
I don't.
Uh-huh.
And again, if anybody wants to buy and just see what it's like, go ahead. I give all the money to charity except for what Amazon takes. You know that there's
Right.
no
Of
way around that.
course,
But
gotta
like,
pay Daddy Bezos.
but yeah. So I'm not
Yeah.
trying exactly, exactly. He's got to get his cut.
Uh-huh.
Um, but yeah, but I mean, like that ain't good.
Hmm.
Now, is it going to get to the point where it is good? Probably. And
Hmm.
that's going to be a little bit different. But I think in many ways, what resonates with people are the imperfections.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I talk about Steph Curry a lot. I live in the Bay Area. I love my Warriors. I
Hmm.
will pay bunch of people pay bunches of money to see that man play basketball.
Yep.
You can build a robot that is going to build it better. And in fact, Honda just recently, I think it was Honda, recently built a robot that like after like 2,500 free throws in a row making, they just stopped. They're like, okay, they were doing something with Guinness and then they're like, okay, this is boring or like all the time was up or whatever.
Hmm.
Like nobody is going to go see that.
Hmm.
We will see a human being do that same thing though, and
Hmm.
pay $300-400 a ticket to do that.
Hmm.
And that is exciting because of the imperfections and all that. I just saw for the first time, a few years old, I just saw the movie 1917.
Hmm. Love that
Great
movie.
film.
Amazing.
Oh, so good.
Hmm.
And there's a very famous scene in there, and it's funny. I looked this up where main character is kind of running. It's a World War I movie. Main
Hmm.
character is running outside of the trenches, and all of the soldiers from England are now getting up and out of the trenches. So he's running kind of perpendicular to where all the soldiers are. He gets knocked down.
Yeah.
And in fact, he gets knocked down twice. And, that was not part of the script, but like that was one of and they kept this in the film. They actually had takes where he didn't get knocked down,
Yeah.
but it was raw. It was all this stuff. And it was the imperfections that came out that, frankly, as an audience,
Hmm.
knowing that was the story behind the story, like it makes me like it more.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you will never ever get the story behind the story in an AI model. And those things matter. Like,
Hmm.
there's a very famous an art critic was asked once, like, somebody said to them, like, hey, how much is this painting worth? Some modern whatever looks like maybe your kid could draw it. He's
Hmm.
like, if you tell me the story of the artist, I'll tell you how much it's worth.
Yeah.
And like that resonates, right?
Hmm.
Because yeah, maybe a kid could have drawn it, but a kid didn't. There's
Right.
something else to it. There's a story behind it.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of that. Storytelling is our humanities. Like it's
Yes.
the original way we communicate back to, Neanderthal caveman days, sitting around a campfire. Like that's what like stories are how we communicate, and I completely agree. That's exactly where we are as people. The things I always think about are, yes, there's a benefit to lowering the skill requirement to say make music professionally, right? That there's benefits to that. It makes it more accessible, but does it devalue the skill and the like learning how to do it yourself, do you think? Does
I think it
when
just
you
changes it.
Okay.
Honestly, I think it changes it and up levels it. I mean, there are billions of people who have a camera on them every day.
Hmm.
150 years ago, there was like what, two or
Maybe,
something
maybe.
I mean that didn't exist in like the
Hmm.
1800s. Now billions of people have it. There are still people who are professional photographers.
Hmm.
There are people who use this as an art form. There are people who do this as whatever. And they're like, well, but everyone has it. But you know what? There is nuance to the craft.
Hmm.
There is all this other stuff that comes out there. And again, there's almost, if you're buying photographic art, you're
Hmm.
actually buying the story behind it
Yeah.
versus that just, yeah, an AI could have done that or whatever. And so I think those are the things that really do resonate with human beings. Like,
Hmm.
why is it like that? And an AI can tell you why, but it's not going to be, again, it's not going to be something that ever resonates at a much deeper level.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that people won't enjoy AI generated works. Like I do see a future where you can go into Disney Plus and you could say, hey, Disney, I want a new Star Wars episode, but I want you to put the Bluey characters in there.
Hmm.
And I want you to the Blueies and Baby Yoda, and it's going to do it, and it's going to do it to your taste, and it's going to be enjoyable. But then you might also say, okay, Disney, I just want to watch the latest Guillermo del Toro film,
Hmm.
and it's going to show you
Right.
that. And that's something that everyone will see, and that's more of a universal experience that you could talk to people about later on. And so I think there's going to be, and we already have this, like what you see on Twitter or TikTok or Facebook or anything, it's not the same as what I see. And
Hmm.
so, like, we already have these customized experiences. I think it will be more AI embedded in those, but there's still going to be massively consumed content that
Absolutely.
has an artistic vision that is made by humans with the
Hmm.
help of AI. Like,
Absolutely.
both of those things will exist in this world.
I completely agree with you. I think that some of my concerns, and I do have some concerns, obviously,
Yeah.
are
Same.
around are around, with that is like you start talking about how, social media is different for you than it is for me. And then we look at how the effects, the cumulative effects that has had on our society over the last 25 years. And I would argue
Yeah.
that the hyper that that has amplified a lot of the hyperpolarization that you're seeing in the both in the political spectrum, and then you see raising tensions across the world. And
100%.
do you think that increased increased hyper personalization in media will continue to exacerbate that?
I think, look, it does two things, the hyper personalization. I think, because look, yeah, if you go back 40 years,
Hmm.
um, everyone watched the last, in the US, like 60, 70% of the population watched the last episode of MASH.
Yeah,
Like, I'd be willing to bet there is not a single program where 60 to 70% of the population watches any individual episode in a
I
given
agree.
year. It's probably
I
not
agree.
even close to that. Like whatever, like Squid Games or the most popular Netflix show, like it would not even be anywhere near that. And to have a shared, sports is probably the only thing that's still close
Mhm.
to that.
Yeah.
Super Bowl, World Cup, all that kind
Right.
of stuff. That's probably the only thing that's maybe even like near where that once was.
Hmm.
But for storytelling, that just doesn't exist anymore. And when you have these hyper customized experiences, one of the things it does is like these kind of tell you whatever it is that you believe or do or think or whatever is kind of normal because you have your tribe.
Hmm.
And this can be a good thing, and this could be a bad thing as well.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's both sides of that. Like, if you are a person who is, let's just say you're Jewish and you're living in a town where there is not a single other person who is a
Hmm.
Jew in that town. Do you know what? There's ways to connect with people online who have similar beliefs to you or whatever it might be. And do you know what? That's cool.
Hmm.
But it also brings out the darker side as well. And
Yeah.
like things that were like usually put to the edges are like, oh, well, no one else believes this crazy. And let's just go like just whatever flat earth or whatever it would be. Like there's a way to get a tribe on that. Now,
Hmm.
flat earth is relatively harmless, I would say, but like there's much darker places where that can actually go to. It's
Yes.
part of that. And that is the world that we're entering. And you're right, it is going to be hype. I think Facebook has been very public that you are going to start seeing more AI in your Instagram feeds, more AI in your Facebook feeds. They make the largest, basically the most popular, best known AI model out there, Llama.
Hmm.
Anybody can download it, anybody can use it, but they're also using this stuff. They
Hmm.
want to be an AI first company, and it's going to be part of the algorithm, of the algorithmic feed that is
Hmm.
going to be what you're seeing and what you're experiencing, which is, in my mind, getting further away from connecting all of humanity or whatever their initial mission was at Facebook by putting a
Hmm.
bunch more, frankly, bots in there to
Yeah.
be able to keep you engaged. And
Hmm.
and, and that is like that is part of the darker side of this future that we're entering
Absolutely.
with AI.
Absolutely. And I think when you start, because yes, there are going to be some more, let's just say, policed models where you can't have you can't have it create certainly, sticking with the theme of, your entertainment, you can have it create anything you want with any character you want. There's gonna be like, Disney, Netflix, I would assume all of them are gonna have it, right? Netflix probably won't be able to use Disney's characters in their
Right,
stuff, right?
right.
Things like that. But there's also going to be the open source version of that where you'll be able to do anything you want, see anything you want. And then I'd also guess at some point it'll get integrated into the headset technologies, and then things will really take off, and people will, I think that thinking of like the Minority Report. I know we talked about that a little bit, the movie Minority
Mhm.
Report. I remember there was a scene in it where like people that wanted to, like, there was like people would go to like this spot where they could fantasize about killing their whoever, and because it wasn't a future crime, and like, and I would also assume that there's going to be other avenues for other darker appetites in humanity, and that's like people that have those appetites want to be found, right? They just
Yeah,
don't want to be found by law enforcement. And so,
yeah.
there's going to be more ways to do it. And I just kind of I think about the potential societal impact of some of those things. And like I think there absolutely is a huge amount of benefit and upside to not the darker appetites. And maybe some people that have those darker inclinations will be able to get them out through the AI or through the what have you and not bring them into the real world. But my concern is that might make people more comfortable with it or make it more acceptable for them. And, it could have, potential impacts on, in the real world, like not the virtual one.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, with all the one thing that is certain is we are going to be entering uncharted territory. Like
Hmm.
we don't know when, I think OpenAI, Elon Musk with XAI, and even Anthropic in the past week said, we're 2 to 3 years away from superintelligence.
Hmm.
From what they're seeing with where they see kind of the line going, the methods that they're using to build these models, to train these models, we are not far away from a point where you are going to have at the ready a model that is going to be capable of being smarter than the smartest human that has ever lived. Like
Hmm.
that seems, and again, we don't know for sure, but it seems more and more likely that that could be in the not too distant future. That changes much in our world, like because like what does that mean for work? What does that mean for all of these other things? And like that, like I have done a lot of research in my work on AI on, job substitution with other technological advances and things like that. But that does change things.
Hmm.
When you truly can have I could be an individual person owning a company and have 100,000 AI agents working on the ready for me to build a business that is going to be doing X, Y, and Z, and it's doing customer service, and it's building like a virtual product, and it's managing the website, and it's doing this, and it's talking with a fulfillment center, and it's all that. And I'm just hitting some buttons like how does
Hmm.
that change things?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't know. Like and that is, the future that we are probably all going to be living through and not too far from now.
Hmm. And I think I just read that Zuckerberg recently said that he thinks that AI can do the job of any mid-level software engineer out there,
Yeah.
right? And to your point about workforce, like what do those software engineers do? Like these are people that went to schools and are highly trained in that space. And like I understand from a corporate perspective, increasing profits to shareholders is their goal. And so that it's an inherently different it's different than like a private business, like publicly traded or and I worry about our way of life changing fundamentally.
It will change. It will change. I mean, one thing is like just if artificial general intelligence gets here tomorrow, I don't know if things change the next day. Like
Hmm.
there's other things. It's going to take some time and so forth. I mean, the vast majority of the world have never used generative AI tools, and
Hmm.
more than 50% of the world is online. So like,
Yeah.
they've never used these tools yet. But people will, even though they've been, out and readily available for what, 2.5, 3 years now. Um, But here's the thing, as we start to kind of look forward into that future, I think that we're going to have w- we have to just start asking a lot of questions about
Hmm.
this, about like where we want this to go, where what we want this to look like. I mean, I know Sam Altman, for one, from OpenAI, has been a person who's been very focused, in his time at Y Combinator and beyond,
Hmm.
on like universal basic income.
Yeah.
Like what is that going to mean for people? Is that something we should be doing for folks out there? I think those are things that, like, as a society, we like really need to consider because maybe it didn't make sense before, but will it make sense in this future world?
Hmm.
And like have
Right.
just real like non-political conversations about things like that.
What do you think?
Oh
Having done all
no.
the research and done, well, there's a lot of ways this can go, right? It could go like more dystopic with everything centered in very few people, which if you look at the trends in this country over the last 50 years seems to be the way we've been trending,
Yeah.
with more and more at the top and less at at the bottom. But do you think that what do you think some of the likely paths are then, and kind of what do you think some of the issues that we're going to be looking at over the next 20 years really are?
One thing that I wrote about this at length, and it was fun doing research on it. Like, I was writing about the 4-day work week.
Hmm.
And this is a concept that, I was able to go back to, John Maynard Keynes, who
Yep.
100 years ago was basically saying productivity growth is going to look like this. And what that means is people are going to be working less and less. And eventually, just people aren't going to need to work anymore.
Hmm.
Keynes was actually right about the productivity growth. It's like pretty
Right.
amazing. Like what he was looking at 100 years ago, it is tracked fairly closely to that.
Hmm.
We are working less than we did 100 years ago, as much as people like to say we're not. Like in reality, we are.
Hmm.
And frankly, I think even for a lot of people in white collar jobs, the amount of time working is probably a lot of times social media, distractions, other stuff. We're not always efficient. That's because we have the luxury of not having to be efficient
Yeah.
with it. I think and then this came in, and then Richard Nixon was promoting this, so on the Republican side, and Bernie Sanders more recently has been promoting this, like,
Hmm.
and specifically talking about AI in this world. And
Hmm.
like, I think that's a good direction for all of us to move towards.
Hmm.
Like, if nothing else, if these models are better serving us as a society, to
Hmm.
give us more time for leisure, to be with friends, to be with family, to work on arts and things like that. Like those are the things that actually get me excited.
Hmm.
Talking about AI movies, Her is a dark movie in many ways because, spoiler alert for people who haven't seen the movie, but at the end, the man who falls in love with the AI finds out that the AI is not in love with him, and the AI has kind of gone off and done his own thing, and that's where the movie ends. But there's a much more optimistic side to the movie. And I actually only really realized it when I rewatched it over the summer.
Uh-huh.
Um, in that world, what the people are doing is actually really creative work. So
Hmm.
the main Joaquin Phoenix in that movie, he's writing business card, or I'm sorry, he's writing like love letters and things like that to people, and like it's outsourced, whatever. But he's actually writing it, and when he's writing it, he's dictating it, and it's literally being handwritten by a computer on the
Hmm.
screen, and you could see that, and they print it out, and they send that off, and all this. But there's a human there.
Hmm.
All the jobs in the movie are actually extremely creative. And I
Hmm.
think that would be wonderful
Hmm.
if we as a society, however that is, are given more time for creativity, for free thought, for hobbies, for whatever it might be. Like, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
How we actually get there, I don't know, but like maybe there are at least baby steps to get there. Like it's not, if we hit AGI, it's not like all the jobs are gone the next day. There
Right.
is time in between. But
Yeah.
like if we as a society could prioritize all of those other things versus, well, no, you're not a real man if you're not working all the time or whatever, or like
Right.
all these other American ethos that I kind of grew up with and probably still have it's part of me.
Yeah.
Like that to me is like the society we should strive for.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's and I'm with you. I think that, I also like I get most of my fulfillment out of creative work, not
Yeah.
routine, monotonous things. I also think that everybody's not built to do that kind of work, right? And we need to have a system. And I think that one of the big things that we're seeing it like at a trend level is as things have as cost of living has increased at a higher rate than wages have, largely. And we also have more things like, 40 years ago, you didn't have a cell phone bill or an internet bill
Absolutely.
or a cable bill.
Yeah.
We just didn't,
Yeah.
and these are all, and I just, I think that the squeeze is going to continue to happen on folks, and really want to make sure that like the economic squeeze, right, where things are going to cost more. I mean, just look at the price of everything over the last 5 years, 6 years. And I think that, there's absolutely going to be a lot of people that do very, very well in this new economy, but it's not going to be everybody. And I think that a lot of the options for some folks are just going to continue to get whittled away and whittled away. And
Yeah.
I just really want to, like, one of my goals with robots and red tape is to have the conversations where we're talking about these things, because I think that, to your point earlier, we need to be talking about this stuff, and we need to actually be out here talking about the good and the bad and everything in between, right?
Yeah. One person who I love who talks about this really over time is Morgan Housel.
Hmm.
And his book, Same as Ever, like is probably the book I recommend more than any other one. Like it just came out a couple of years ago. Like I've already decided I'm reading this book every single year
Hmm.
because it is just so valuable. And one of the things it talks about is like, okay, by any objective measure, things were not better in the 50s, 60s, 70s, like any other time. Like if you really look at that bubble, why do we perceive it was better? And I think so much of that is expectations. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. When we were coming out of the war in the 19 from the 40s into the 50s, we didn't have very high expectations as a country.
Hmm.
I mean, this is also why I think often happiness index, if you look at like what are the happiest countries in the world, they're often the ones with the lowest expectations. Like,
Hmm.
so these two things correlate in many
I
ways.
I found most of my professional success comes from managing expectations properly, Mike.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
even in
really.
relationships and things like that. I mean, like, in many ways, the best marriage is one where you don't expect much from your partner and you're just always constantly happily surprised by like,
Hmm.
wow, that's all. Like, I mean, like that is like the world of that because otherwise you adapt to whatever your level is. Like, if it, to me, it's bringing this back to AI real quick, Nick. Like, it
Hmm.
is insane to me how cheap ChatGPT is. And I always try and remind myself that for
Hmm.
$20 a month, and ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, any of these
Right.
is same thing, not specifically ChatGPT. But for $20 a month, you are getting access to probably the most powerful computer and the most powerful like AI that the
Hmm.
world has ever seen.
Yeah.
You have access to that to do effectively whatever the heck you want.
Hmm.
Um, if you were to go to whatever the biggest company in 2001, 2020 or something like 5 years ago and say, hey, how much would you pay for this tool per user in your company? They would probably pay tens of thousands of dollars per person
Probably.
for
Yeah.
some. I mean, it would just be like, oh my God, this is just
Hmm.
astronaut. But you know what? Hedonic adaptation. We're,
Hmm.
we we are just like, it's
Yeah.
and like we as humans do this all the time in life.
Hmm.
Like our world today, yes, there are a lot of problems, a lot of issues, but it's so much better than what it used to be. And
Oh, I agree.
frankly, the more people read history, the more that, but
Hmm.
also I think it's more of just like taking a step back and just learning to appreciate the stuff you
Yeah.
have. Just basically
Hmm.
say like, oh my God, for $20 a month or for free, I can do this and this. This is
Hmm.
pretty amazing. And that's not a hard thing. We are not wired for that as human
Yeah.
beings. For most of our existence, things were the same year
Hmm.
after year. Things did not change much generation to generation. We are not wired for these massive improvements that, frankly, we've been seeing for the last 150 years since the
Yeah.
Industrial Revolution. So, like that is something that's very hard for our biology to even just comprehend
I
and to
agree.
ultimately to appreciate.
I agree. One of my favorite thoughts or stats about not stat but thoughts about history is somebody that lived 150 years ago, like in like, let's be, the first oil well was drilled in 1851
Yeah.
ish. So 150 years ago was 1875. We're talking 10 years out of the Civil War, right?
Yeah.
In and Reconstruction is going on in the South. people that lived then, their day-to-day lives had more in common with people that lived 1,000 years before them than they do with us, right? Like you and
That's
I are
crazy.
sitting
Yeah.
3,000 miles apart right now, having a conversation in real time that we're recording and then we're going to put online for people all over the world to listen to.
Yeah.
And that is like incredible. And also, you're absolutely right. From our lives are better. Like people, I think people have lost perspective on, what it was like. And like people, I remember one of the things that I remember most on this is that when I was growing up, like I remember people making jokes about Labor Day, about how why do you need a day off for Labor Day? And this, it's like, you know what? I specifically remember somebody talking about how all Americans are lazy because you get a Labor Day off and you get a Labor Day and you don't work on it. And it's just like this,
Yeah.
first, that's dumb. But second, like
Yeah.
people don't understand what went into the labor movement anymore
Yes.
and why like unions are a thing and how they were created out of a backlash of, people having to work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for almost no money to keep a job, right?
Yes.
And people don't understand that like people died for the 40-hour work week, right?
Yeah.
40 hours for you, 40 hours for sleep, 40 hours for us to do with what we will was like they're
Yes.
saying, right? And
Yeah.
people don't have that perspective anymore. So you're absolutely right. I think expectations are a problem.
We take all that for granted, Nick. I want to add to the first thing that you said there. So let's use 15s as the example, or 1 5 as the example. So
Mhm.
150 years ago, people had more in common with people from, let's just even say 1500 years ago
Yes.
than they do today. I think that is totally true, totally spot
Hmm.
on. I bet you people who are living 15 years from now in 2040,
Hmm.
we might have more in common with those people from 1875 than we do from the people who are 15 years from now. I,
Really?
I mean, I do believe like our world is going to change a lot. It is going to be extremely unsettling.
Hmm.
This is just a hot take I'm throwing out there for.
No, I love it. Dude, I love
I,
you.
but like I honestly do think like assuming we do hit like some level of AGI and I think we are going to have that like
Do
our
you think
world
go ahead. No, I have a question about
no,
AGI.
no, to our world, to everything we've been kind of talking about is going to look so vastly different 15 years from now. When my 11-year-old is 26 years old and she is out there in the workforce, it ain't even going to make sense. Like I've said on other podcasts before, like I know at some point my kids are going to come home and they're going to like, hey, can I bring my boyfriend, girlfriend home? And like they're going to walk in through the front door and say like, oh, here's my boyfriend, and they're going to
Hmm.
show a device or something. Like I
Hmm.
don't doubt that that is going to happen at some point in this
Hmm.
world, and it's not going to just be a joke. It is
Right.
actually going to
Hmm.
be something that is good God because it exists on the fringes now, like
Oh,
all of
no.
these things are going to reshape our
Yeah,
society.
they
And it's
are.
going to be really uncomfortable for many of us, especially old folks like me.
Yeah, I will have an 18-year-old in 15 years, and thinking about the world she's going to be graduating high school and walking into is going to be fascinating, right?
Yes.
I think a lot of our systems and structures, when you start looking at the scholastic system and everything, are still going to be antiquated because we don't change quickly with everything. Um, the same like in government and structures in some ways, and it's a feature, not a bug, in some at sometimes, but it's still fascinating to see what might happen, and how like it's going to affect everything from like education to school to work to everything moving forward.
I mean, I would say in the last 18 months, Nick, when I talk to students, like university students right now, um, 18 months ago, what I was telling them, I was like, you are in an awesome place going into the workforce because you are like AI first. All of these old fools at these companies don't even know it. You're going to go in there, you're going to be like a magician. You're just
Mhm.
going to be like doing magic tricks, and everybody's going to be like, how did you do that and
Yeah.
everything? That was 18 months ago. Today, my tone on that has totally changed. Like I think it's hard getting an internship. It's hard doing all these things we kind of took for granted because, as we were talking about before, like these tools, they can do the work of an intern. Like, I've been hearing a lot about SEC documents, like S1s and
Mhm.
S4s and all of these things that used to take, you know, legions of out of school, highly paid MBA students who are now working at Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. They would work on this for weeks. And you can actually have AIs build out an S1 type document, potentially in hours or minutes. That is probably even of a better quality than what you had. And that's today.
Hmm. Right.
Like it's changing out there. And so the one thing I do tell people is like, entrepreneurship is probably the one safe bet that I can actually see out there.
Yeah.
Find a customer, find something, then use these tools to make your own business for that. I know that's probably not what most people went to school for, but like
Yeah.
my view on this has changed so much in just 18 months, seeing how these things have changed the workplace.
That's fascinating. I also I it's interesting because I tell people that ask me about like I'm thinking about starting a business. Should I? I'm just like if you're asking me, the answer is no.
Yes,
Is
yes,
what I
yes.
tell people. Is there's but I also think that one of the things I talk about this a lot and very often is that like entrepreneurship, one of the things people don't think about is like you're good at your service, your delivery, right? Good service, whatever it may be, right? There's a lot of other stuff and a lot of other activities that you need to do as an entrepreneur, whether it's cash flow management,
Yes.
finance side, right? Budgeting, planning, taxes, HR, legal compliance, like working with states, all like, and that's just part of it, right? And I think that, I think some of these AI engines might help with some of that stuff because the amount of time it took me to learn some of these things and do some of these things. Like I'm starting a nonprofit right now. And instead of like going around on the IRS website and trying to figure it out, I just use like which category I fall underneath and how best to justify it to the IRS and everything. I just started talking to ChatGPT and asking him like, what are the ways we can have a nonprofit? What about an idea like this? How would this classify? How would this qualify? What would we need to do? And it like spelled all of it out for me pretty simply. And then, obviously you have an attorney double check it something, just to be
Yes,
sure. But it's also a lot cheaper to have an attorney verify something than it is to have them find something out for you in the first place, right?
exactly. Well,
Um,
let me bring it back to writing really quick. So I am writing a book with a publisher right now,
mhm,
and I have an editor. And you know what?
mhm.
It's awesome having an editor. But
Yeah.
most things I write, I don't have the advantage of that. And so I use Grammarly, I use Claude, I use ChatGPT. Even in the things I give to the editor, I have the decency of actually running it through those tools before
Mhm.
handing it to the editor to make their job easier. And you know what? They're probably using them too, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
there's still like that human intervention, like you said, with the lawyer and so forth on that. It's more higher value added stuff that they're going to
Mhm.
be doing on
Absolutely.
top of it at kind of at the end of the line. And that's how all of our jobs are going to morph. They're going to
Mhm.
change. A
Absolutely.
job is just a series of tasks where you're trying to accomplish something.
Mhm.
And it is just going to be a different series that we're going to
Mhm.
start seeing. And hopefully the AI is going to take the less value added stuff. If you're in one of those jobs right now where you're looking at it like, oh God, everything I do seems to be something an AI can do, well, then that's when you start to be like, okay, well, is this the right field for me? Should I
Mhm.
be looking at other things and so forth? But I think for most jobs, at least with where we're at today, it's just going to up level and you're going to be do more of the client facing stuff or whatever it
Mhm.
might be and
Yeah.
and less of the back
Right.
office.
Or go out and have a trade, right? Like I think things
Yes.
like
Oh, absolutely.
I one of the things I like if I could go back and do it over, I'd either like have joined the military coming out of high school, or I would have like gone to a trade school and got into like HVAC or plumbing or electrical work or one of these things that's impossible to automate away. Did it for 5 years, figured it out, and then started a business in that space. Because like there's like, but I also was indoctrinated into that everybody must go to college thing growing up,
Yeah.
and because that's how my generation was told and taught. And like it stuck a lot of people with a lot of college debt. Thankfully, I couldn't complete because I got kicked out a couple of times, but that's neither here nor there, Mike. So, but dude, back to
But look,
AGI. Go, 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 and then I want to bring
well,
up
I mean, so
AGI.
so the common wisdom, like 6, 7 years ago, like OpenAI actually had a robotics team back then.
Hmm.
The common wisdom was, oh, the first jobs that are going to go are the people who are in a trade, the people who are, working fast food, the people who are doing whatever. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, like that's the evolution of large language models is like, oh no, it's coming for design jobs, it's coming for
Hmm.
writing jobs, it's coming for engineering jobs. And that changed things very quickly. Like we are a long ways off from having a robot that's going to be able to put up my Christmas lights here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
A
and
long way.
and and a gentleman that I had on the podcast a while ago, he worked for a large company that as a principal AI researcher. And we talked about like and his point was it's easier for AI to displace an executive. And if you're, say, managing a division of 5,000 people, it's like there's a finite amount of information that you or me or any person can take in and manage and balance at the same time. But and so you can't dig into every single person, what they're doing on the team, understand every project they're working on, understand how they and how they cross over and look for potential inefficiencies in anywhere near as well as an AI can do it, right? And when you look at replacing jobs, it's a lot like somebody at a publicly traded company managing 5,000 people. What do you think their they're going to make compensation wise? Ballpark.
Managing 5,000 people?
Yeah, overseeing a division of 5,000 people.
Oh, good God. Again, I'm
Well,
trying to get my tech area, Bay Area. So, I mean, 500K, $1 million, something.
500K, $1 million plus bonus, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
stock
yeah, yeah,
options and everything.
yeah.
You to make AI economically viable, you need to replace a lot less of ex less lot fewer
Yes.
executives than you do frontline workers or middle management. You just
Yeah,
have like there's, and they need to be less efficient. So that 5,000, instead of overseeing 5,000, maybe you oversee 7,500 and review what the AI is recommending.
yeah,
Um, but then you're having two people do the job of three, and you're saving the company a couple $1 million, right? So it's fascinating. Um,
absolutely. Yes.
but my question on AGI, Mike, I know you said like if you think in they're saying the next 2 to 3 years where they think we're going to hit that. Um, do you think that we're going to need to be do you think that's going to be a quantum enabled or no?
No, no.
No, that's before quantum gets plugged into it.
So I did maybe 2 or 3 months of quantum stuff when I was at PayPal. I didn't understand it any better on my last day of working on quantum related projects
Hmm.
versus on the first day of it. Like it confused the hell out of me. I think, but I don't think we need that. Might it expedite things? But yeah, potentially. I think we're quite some time off.
Hmm.
The thing with AGI, and this is
Can you
more of
define it
my
for folks
belief,
as
and I've been.
well?
Oh,
Can
sorry.
you
Go ahead.
define it for people what that is and what that and super intelligence means?
Well, this is where I was going with that
Okay,
actually.
nice.
So
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, great minds. Yeah, I'm here with you.
So my belief on this is like there is no single definition of what superintelligence is. Some
Hmm.
people say, well, it's the equivalent of all of the world's knowledge in a single entity that you could access. It's just smarter than the smartest person you know in any field. It could do the work of 100 people, or it could do certain tasks, or whatever it might be. There's no real definition. People are going to start calling it that. But here's the reality with like artificial general intelligence. Like I think the best way to measure it is just based on public perception. Like, do
Hmm.
people perceive that an AGI is out there? I think because that's ultimately what matters, because there really is no definition.
Hmm.
And where we're at today, there are some people who would perceive that.
Hmm.
Blake Lemoine, who used to be a Google employee, who very famously was in the news for kind of falling in love with the Gemini
Hmm.
bots that he was like, I don't think he explicitly said that, but it was a little bit implied in there potentially. But seeing it as a species and a person and or like
Hmm.
a different entity and so forth, like he would probably be a person who is in the camp of, okay, like we are at AGI now. There's some other people. Like we're not anywhere near where 100% of the population is, but we're above zero right
Hmm.
now. And
Yeah.
then what's that going to look like as we get there and like go through each step of the process of that? And I think almost in my mind, that's how I think about AGI.
Hmm.
Like AGI is whatever you perceive AGI to be.
Hmm.
And it's going to be a little bit different for every person who is out there. But once it's out there, it probably means it's impacting you pretty well. And if you add up all the people and their perceptions of that, that will give you almost a better look of like, okay, truly, it's when we cross 50%, let's just say, and 50% of people believe AGI is out there, that means we're at AGI.
Okay. What is that? What do you think that would, how would AGI change our, like, change our world? Like, what is that? What are even the implications of it?
So this is so far, and that's why I said 15 years from now are going to be look more different from today than 150 years ago. Like, that whole
Yeah.
thing. Like truly, I don't know. I mean, it's, people still be driving cars, people still be socializing, all that. But like,
Will
what
they
is
be driving
work?
cars though? Because I know, like,
Well,
with
or
Waymo and Tesla and all, like, that might not be the best example, right?
no, no, no. Sorry, I should say using cars for transportation.
Okay,
I
there we
I
go.
have a Tesla with full self-driving,
Hmm.
and I use that every single day. So
Hmm.
I'm constantly using full self-driving. I've driven in Waymos before. Like
Hmm.
that is an AI technology that is basically here.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like you actually like said that. I'm like, oh yeah, doesn't everybody have a full self-driving car? I'm like, no, no, yeah. But
I
like in my
don't.
mind, it's like
Right.
that's already here, and I use a car to get around. I'm just not driving it most of the time.
Hmm.
It is the computer that is actually driving it. And I will say the computer probably does a much better job than me. And I think
Okay.
and I think it does a most better job than like 99% of the population, just most people won't admit it.
Hmm.
Um, so but like, yes, people will still be moving around, all that, but like in the workplace itself, oh my God, I
Hmm.
have no idea what
Okay.
that is going to look like. Because when you can, spin up something from OpenAI for $200 a month that can do the work of a dozen people and do it better and do it for 24 hours a day or whatever, like what is that going to look like? Like, are you going to be hiring people? I don't know. And that's why in my mind, I'm like, being the entrepreneur and using these tools is like the only job I could really clearly foresee in this future. Being a manager of all these robots, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's a lot of, I think that, like, large language models are fascinating and they're amazing and they help out with a lot of things. I also think that they don't do an action, right? It's not, they can write things, they can create in a lot of ways, but it's not like an action model that, like, is gonna, one of the things that I'd personally love is, like, I've found one of the more labor intensive parts of running a podcast is posting everything to all the different social medias and posting it to, like, the Instagram and keeping up and all of this. But, like, I'd love to be able to just get, like, have, an AI just, hey, here's a folder with my content, here's login accesses, just post it,
Yeah.
put it on a
Um,
schedule.
I mean, so from what I've heard, I don't know if you play with it. Suppose I've heard podcast.ai is pretty incredible for
I'll
doing
check
that
it
kind
out.
of
I
stuff.
haven't
Like
heard of it.
yeah, giving you snippets, like doing this, like basically just taking what you have, editing it down, getting rid of the ums, putting the snippets, putting that
Yeah.
out there, making it for different socials, like that whole thing. Like I think a lot of folks are using that
Hmm.
now, and that's a company that maybe just started 18 months ago with that or 12
Hmm.
months ago. They're still
Okay.
relatively.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, look, this future's tough. Like I don't know where this is going. I
Hmm.
do know for people today, the one thing I can say, like on the optimist, like know these tools, understand these tools, use these tools. OpenAI just released their agent model to the public. It's $200 a month. I
Hmm.
haven't spent $200 a month for ChatGPT, but I've already blocked off my calendar this afternoon. I'm going to spend the $200 at least for a month, and I'm going to start
Yeah.
playing with their agents just to
Yeah.
see what these things are actually capable of, how good are they, and so forth. Because like this is the future that we are entering, where yes, you could just have agents do stuff for you, and you just spend your time going for a walk, playing the
Mhm.
guitar,
Yeah.
being with friends and family, whatever it might be. I mean,
Do you think
that's
there are industries or functions that are on the chopping block first or up first?
like I think customer service is one that has come up a lot,
Yeah.
where
Everybody talks about call centers.
call centers, exactly. Like if you're in
Nobody
a
likes
call,
calling 800 numbers.
and I just think of like my time at PayPal when I was there. We had so many of these call centers, and the software that they were dealing with was just archaic.
Hmm.
Like nobody wanted to touch it. Nobody wanted to update the software.
Yeah.
And so it was like 6 weeks of training just
Oh
to
yeah.
get a new agent up. And the average agent's time was like less than a year at the company.
Hmm.
So huge cost to the company and
Oh
so
yeah.
forth. Like I see those. I would say it's not that I don't see those jobs existing. I see them evolving, but I probably do see a lot less of them.
A friend of
A
mine
company
runs
like
a
PayPal has, a quarter of their employees in customer service. It is going to be a lot less because you will have agents doing more and more, and the human is just going to be doing more high profile, more value added, more hand touching, and they're probably going to have agents running on their side too, helping them with the process, but they're going to be there for a personalized service. And I think that's how it's going to be with a lot of different fields. It's
yeah.
it's hard to say what is going to be gone entirely. What's the old stat? If you look at all of the jobs from the 1950s, the only one that really doesn't exist today is elevator operator.
Hmm.
Like that's like everything else like exists. It might be a lot less, but like pretty much everything else of like the top 50 jobs from them, it exists in some way, shape, or form.
That's fascinating. I haven't done that comparison. I'm actually going to look that up though. That's really interesting.
It's from some book.
Okay.
Apologies to whoever the author was for not
Chat
remembering, but yeah.
GPT, AI will help with it, right? Like what are the
Yes,
top
yeah,
50 jobs? Because that's something that it can absolutely do.
yeah.
I think that
Well,
it's fascinating as you look at some of the future projections of this. I think it's gonna be fundamentally changing to society in
yeah.
so many ways that we can't even conceive of yet, right?
Yeah. And Nick, just take that one example right there. You could like, and I don't know if podcast AI or anybody else has this, but like there could literally be a producer that's in your ear, just like
Hmm.
if you had that where it was an AI and it would say like, oh yeah, the book is this. Like it
Hmm.
could be listening to our conversation, looking
Yeah.
up things, identifying, oh, is something said incorrectly, or did they want a source, or did they want whatever? And within a second, the answer would be there in your ear, and you'd be like, oh yeah, that's from this.
Right.
Like
Hmm.
that is possible to do today.
Yeah, and I mean, I think customer service is absolutely one of the places, like remote or to a call center. Like first, people don't understand that the market cap of the call center industry is somewhere between 400 and $500 billion a year, right?
Crazy.
And that's a spend that a lot of people would love to bring down first. Second, a friend of mine runs the fastest growing and biggest service line for one of the largest cybersecurity companies in the world.
Mhm.
And as of a year ago, had automated all of tier one help desk
Wow.
with AI
Wow.
as of a year ago, right? Like, and
Yeah.
so, and I mean, he's with it, and he's out there pushing the trends, and he's doing really really cool stuff, but. They weren't giving him budget for more support people, and he has massive clients, and it's just like, all right, I'm just going to automate all of tier one, and then just did it and implemented it, right?
Yeah.
But he has the technical background to do that. But I think that as things continue to move forward, like it's going to be like less and less hard technical skills will be required.
And it's not to say there isn't a way to zag when everyone else is zigging. I
Hmm.
I, I mean, so whenever I think customer service, I always think of Zappos. I remember
Hmm.
one time when I was at PayPal, I actually did this as a little bit of a stunt in a meeting when we were talking about customer service. I was like, let's call up Zappos. And if nobody's ever done this, like do it. Like find their number. Their number is actually not hard to find, unlike some other sites that kind of hide it from you.
Yeah.
But just call up Zappos customer service. They will probably just answer with hello on the other
Mhm.
end. There's no phone tree. There's nothing
Yeah.
like that. And they're based out of Vegas. And I remember I was just talking to them and I'm like, hey, I'm going to Vegas in a little while. Like, can you recommend some hotels for me?
Hmm.
Now, keep in mind, for folks who don't know, Zappos is a shoe company that is
Hmm.
owned by Amazon that is known
Hmm.
for customer service. The story, I think, like they had one agent that once talked to somebody for 8 hours.
Hmm.
And like they have no limits on time, nothing like that. It is all about the experience, human, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And that is like their branding. So there are probably going to be companies out there that say, like, hey, you want to go talk to a robot? Go buy their product. If you want a real human being, talk to us. We don't use robots.
Hmm.
And you know what? That's okay.
I
That's
agree.
okay. That's like a
I
good
agree.
competitive marketplace will give these different
Hmm.
experiences as part of that. So like I do see that. But I think ultimately though, to your point, and as we've been saying, there's probably going to be less of those jobs that do exist today.
Absolutely. And I think that the right blend is going to be important because I know I would always much rather talk to a person. And maybe that's because I'm getting old, right? And I'd much rather interact with a person than with the machine because the person's going to solve the problem. And that's what I know, right? Like
Yeah.
I will get in touch with somebody. It doesn't matter, like the phone tree, whatever, operator, press zero over and over or whatever, and they'll eventually get you to a person. And then you talk to the person, you have a conversation, and they'll figure out how to address your concern and address your problem, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think I would also probably pay more for a service that had higher quality customer service.
Yeah.
Like having an Amex Platinum, you can call them and you can,
I was literally just thinking of
right.
American Express. That is a
Right.
perfect example of that.
Them or any of these, but any
Yeah.
like Chase has them, Citi has them,
Yeah.
the high profile cards for their really for the people that spend a lot of money that they do a lot of business with. You pay for that privilege, right? Like you get a person that's going to talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, or a casino, let's say, like
Mhm.
like you're
Oh
you're
yeah.
a whale or a
Yes.
minnow at a casino. Like you want an account executive that's managing this, and they're probably going to. You still want a human being. You don't want to just
Mhm.
talk to a robot
Yeah.
as part of that, and they want to have that personal relationship and that connection. So you stay at their casino and don't go to the other one and down the street. So like those things will exist, but they will heavily be augmented by. AI, probably even AI as a training mechanism. Like I see
Mhm.
this very much as a tool for sales. I know it already exists out there, but like, hey, if you're doing sales cold calling, it's probably going to be critiquing your script. Like, hey, next time maybe say this instead, or like maybe try with this one, and like
Mhm.
constantly like helping you get better as part of the process. So
Yeah. I think the concept of having a personal AI agent that is with you forever, right? Like essentially like a model trained on you would be is a fascinating concept.
mhm.
Because then I mean it's the same thing like having your assistant as you guys work together and build a relationship. They know, he, she, whoever knows knows what you're good at, what you're not good at, where you need help, and they just like a good one will seamlessly augment your life in a way that is worth every penny and more, right?
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I think the concept of having like, I mean, even like you start like when you're a kid in school and it knows what you're good at, what you're not, how you learn, and it can learn and iterate with you. And then as you get into the workforce, right, it can go with you there and it can help learn and like it can help ensure that you're taking the right trainings, that you're focusing on the right things, and that you're like it's somebody over your shoulder kind of helping out. But I also feel like that's like I don't think that will be hosted locally, and that's a lot of information to give to a company, right?
Yeah. I will say though, like at some point I made that decision for myself, and everyone has to make their own decision on this, but where I'm like, I am going to trust ChatGPT with a bunch of my health information.
Hmm.
And so I uploaded it all in there, and you know, I put blood tests, I put like MRIs, I put
Hmm.
everything in there. So whenever I have a health question, I go, it knows so much more about me than my doctor ever would. Again,
That's
not
amazing.
medical advice for people out there. And
Hmm.
look, there's a downside. Like what if this is compromised in some way? What if like
Yeah.
and I had to make the decision like, am I okay with that given what you will have on the other side? It's,
Hmm.
probably not the best solution, but like it's been so eye-opening for me to have this.
Hmm.
And especially getting older and everything like that. I'm like, oh my God, I could ask it all these questions now.
Yeah.
It never gets like, oh, really? You're calling again about that or whatever. Like it's
Yeah.
because it's constantly there. And
Hmm.
when something's really wrong, and then it says like, you really should see a doctor about
Hmm.
this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's
Oh,
one where I should escalate that. So like,
absolutely. But like,
but to have that for every part of your life is the exciting thing with this.
yeah, I mean, a friend of mine is she has autoimmune of some kind. I don't remember which one, and has to be careful about her diet and what she eats, and gave that information to a chat
Yes.
GPT and then had it create a meal plan for her with her own like it had her create her own meal plan like she had to build recipes for her for all the stuff that she didn't know how to do and didn't have already and then create a shopping list and then just export that shopping list.
Yes.
Boom, here we go. And that like that's really cool, right? That's amazing.
Well, and if you saw the new agent framework ChatGPT has,
I haven't
that was
dug
actually
in.
the example that they gave
Was
was
it really?
not that specifically, but basically, so it's tied into like Instacart. So you
Hmm.
could do that. It'll do it to Instacart and it'll even just get the stuff and have the stuff shipped to you as part of that. So like that's kind of the agent framework that they
Yeah.
have now released as of like just today,
Oh,
basically.
I need to dig into it because I didn't realize that it come out today, and
Yeah.
I'm absolutely gonna dig into that because that's awesome and that's worth 2,400. Like things like that are worth $2,400 a year to me, right? If you can build it yourself and do it for
Exactly.
yourself and have it custom create and it's integrated with everything and it manages stuff like that's cool. Like I
Yes.
mean, a friend of mine built he used Chat GPT to I mean, this was over a year ago to build an application to trade stocks for him, and like he had to create and build and like go and pull information that like what and estimate what's overvalued or undervalued. But
Yeah.
then he told it to use humor, and it started recommending that he buy GameStop. And then GameStop went up, and he's like, I don't know, I should have listened to
It knew.
it.
It was the one on the Reddit message boards actually
Mhm.
pumping this thing. Like
Yeah.
little did we know it was a ChatGPT agent. That's funny.
Absolutely. But like, things like that are cool. And I mean, I can't build my own application to trade stocks for me, but I'm sure ChatGPT could. My concern is I don't trust it yet to manage
Oh,
money for me, right?
I would not take, I would probably give it my credit card information just because I
Mhm.
know I could cancel things on that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if it does do something weird, you could always just hit the cancel button or whatever.
Right.
You could get an alert to just be like, yeah, that was stupid. Don't do
Mhm.
that. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, but like trading stocks, you can't cancel a stock trade. Like
Mhm.
that's that doesn't happen. So I would not be giving it my banking credentials or anything quite like that.
No,
Yeah.
but like if you, but you could start and create your own, your own account, tie
Yeah,
five
put a
grand to
hundred
it,
bucks in there and say
or
go sick on it. Yeah,
$1,000 whatever, and
yeah,
just say, hey, just do and see what it does, right? Because
yeah,
that's
totally.
fascinating. Again,
Actually, that's not a bad idea. I might actually,
you should,
Nick, I might actually do that. That feels like something I need to write about. Just like
right?
literally have it go sick with this agent thing, and just see what it does.
Yeah.
Spin up a brand new account. That's a great idea, actually.
Right, because I mean, you think like it's way better at research than we are in analysis
Yeah.
and things like that. And it can do more information faster. I think it's a phenomenal application, and I'm going to dig into the agent thing as well, because I think that's really cool. But Mike, I know we've talked a lot about like concerns and everything, a little bit. I brought that up. I know we've talked about excitement, but what is the thing? As we're getting ready to wrap up, man, I want to bring it on a positive note. What is one thing that you're very excited or most excited about looking forward that we haven't touched on?
I think we only touched on it slightly, but I do think for health and wellness, this is amazing. Like what
Mhm.
we're about to enter here is incredible. I started and I don't all the time, on and off. I wear a glucose monitor,
Mhm.
and I found when I did that, it completely changed my eating habits.
Mhm.
Like lost a bunch of fat, all this other stuff, just because like I had data in front of me. If you
Mhm.
could kind of, and I saw like Samsung and Apple are both rumored to be doing this, and the Apple Watch, like
Mhm.
all these other kind of things, like we are in a point but like managing all the data from that and the blood tests and all this other kind of stuff and what you're eating and the macros and all this other kind of stuff, it's really damn hard. But
Mhm.
like to bring all of that stuff together is going to be magical.
Yeah.
The thing with these models is they could just make sense out of mass amounts of data that are really difficult for us to make sense of otherwise.
Mhm.
Like, if I put all my steps and my sleep and all this other kind of stuff in there, like it's tracking that now, but I really don't know what to do with it.
Right.
But these models will help with that. We're already at the point where there are AI drugs that are being tested. And when I say AI drugs, drugs that were discovered by,
Mhm.
largely by teams using AI tools that are actually in like various stages of clinical trials. We're
Mhm.
just beginning that. Like, so for me, it is medicine, it is health that by far get me the most excited about this because we're going to it is amazing how little we know about our own bodies.
Hmm.
And this is going to be, I think, a great unlock for us to try and make sense of that just so we can live healthier, happier lives.
Yeah, man. Dude, I love it. I love it, Mike. I think you're absolutely right. I think that, when you combine, and I think to take it a step further, when you combine the incredible amounts of data we'll be able to collect on your body and on you as a person and drugs and drug development and understand how drugs interact in different body types differently. Because, like, you look, it doesn't matter what any medicine you give, right? If you give a billion doses of a medicine, there's going to be side effects. There's going to be edge cases where things are not going to go right. I mean, look at the COVID vaccine. I think I know it harmed some people, but vast majority of the couple billion of people that have gotten dosed by it has been incredibly positive. But
Yeah,
when you start thinking about those edge cases or those people that don't fit the mold, I think that having customized drugs, but also you think about, like, supplements and vitamins and things like that, and having ones that are created custom for you,
yeah.
that are built to be efficiently optimized in your body. I think it's like a no longer a one size fits all. Uh,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look, I think Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, was just talking about this at the White House just a couple days ago. There was the big announcement about for
Stargate.
space. What is it?
Stargate.
Stargate.
It's
Thank you.
Stargate, man. They ripped
I
the
knew it
show
was
off.
some movie title. I was like,
They
what the
ripped the
fuck?
show and movie off, man. I was a huge Stargate fan when I was younger. And I was over here waiting for them to start talking about everything, like, oh man, I know this story.
They should have brought some of the, I mean, the actors and so forth. It would have been great.
Hmm.
But that was one of the things that Ellison was talking about. He was actually talking about like customized RNA type vaccines that would be individual for you in there and like based
Hmm.
on your own biology and so forth. And like those are things that are really exciting. Like we have advanced so far. I was just listening to a podcast that was talking about the assassination of Grover Cleveland. Was
Hmm.
it Grover Cleveland? Yeah, I think it was Grover Cleveland because yeah, Arthur came after him, and it was just talk about how inept the doctors were, and but like these were the best doctors of their time.
Hmm.
But like it's one of the great things about medicine. Like typically, like poorer people lived longer for
Hmm.
a certain period back in like the 1800s, 1700s because they didn't have access to doctors, and doctors typically did more harm than good. And like
It's really interesting you say that, because I don't remember who I was talking to, but I was just talking to somebody about um cardiac events and cardiac arrests, and how one, like, two people that like put stents in, and to doctors that do that, like, that's always the answer, right? Like, to a hammer everything looks like a nail. And interestingly, one of the biggest uh, indicators of whether or not you would have a successful recovery after a heart attack is if there was a cardiologist conference and all the leading cardiologists
yes,
were in the city. It's like, literally, that was one of the data points. It's like,
yeah.
how is that even a thing? How are you
Yeah.
safer when the experts aren't there?
I mean, and here's the reality. Like, and again, I don't want to like doctors devote their lives to medicine.
Absolutely.
I'm not in any way. Neither of us are implying doctors are net bad. But
Mm-mm.
what we're saying is like to give these doctors who are so overworked more tools to be able to make better decisions, to be able to work, to be able to just focus more on their patients and do that and know, well, like there's no way any doctor out there could keep up with all of the latest in medicine. Like the amount of studies that are published,
Mhm.
all this kind of stuff is astronomical. They cannot, it is
Yep.
not humanly possible to do that. To have an AI at their assistance, at their beck and call at every single moment that they're with a patient, that what like that's the future that we need.
Yeah, I agree, and that's 100%, dude. It's fascinating. It's going to be interesting to see where things go, Mike, and I appreciate your all the work you're doing, and the research and the writing and dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. This has been so much fun.
Nick, hey, this was a pleasure. I would love to come back any other time you would have me. This is super fun just having this conversation with you.
Dude, same for me, man. I really appreciate it. Everybody. Thank you for listening to Robots and Red Tape. Hope you're having a great day.